This is your first time with us, a very warm welcome to you. If you're coming back here after being away for a while, or if you're joining one of the folks that joins us week after week, it's good to be together this night. Christmas Day is a special day. Everywhere, I think it's especially special in New York City. And here at St. Peter's, it's a great gift to be able to close out this great celebration of Christmas with this great trio and with all of you. We know, too, that folks are joining us from home on our live stream, and we're glad that you're here with us. We're coming to you from 54th Street and Lexington Avenue, and wherever you're gathered this night, we're glad that you're together with us. Jazz Vespers has been celebrated at St. Peter's since the 1960s, actually in the building that used to exist on this property before it redeveloped with Citibank. And it's something that is near and dear to this community. We celebrate Jazz Vespers every week, a little bit differently, and so we're really looking forward to tonight. One of the ways in which we always gather, though, is to light a candle. I'm going to go up to the altar in a second and light the Vesper candle. It's a way of saying, as night comes among us, if we didn't have artificial light, the church has been doing this for thousands of years before electric. Lighting a candle is a way of reminding us that God's presence is still with us even as night comes. But also, I think, especially on Christmas, we can, and we'll hear in the reading tonight, there's always this relationship of light and dark that gets played out in thinking about the birth of the Christ child. And so we especially light this candle tonight. And I'll say a few words when I get up there, and folks at home, you're invited to light a candle with us too. And perhaps at home you'll say what I'll say here: God's light shines, light of life eternal. And the other way that the Church has always sought to gather at Vespers, acknowledging that it comes at the close, the prayer service comes at the close of the day, and we've had a lot have happened over the course of this day, especially this day. We read Psalm 141. It's one of these really interesting psalms from all of the book of Psalms, 150 of them, some psalms of joy, some psalms of sorrow, some psalms of longing. There are psalms of lament. This psalm, as you hear it, you'll imagine the psalmist is coming to the close of a day. And it's an uncertain time in the life of God's people when these psalms were written, and they weren't quite certain what the brightness of the future might be. The psalmist knew, however, and we'll hear it in a minute, that if tomorrow was going to be brighter than this day, that would begin with their own actions. And so, as you quiet yourself in this night, perhaps embody, like the psalmist, this reflection. You'll hear that the psalmist goes throughout the whole body, seeking to set our eyes on the future and on God. Let my prayer rise before you as incense, the psalmist writes. The lifting up of my hands as evening comes. O Lord, I call to you, come to me quickly, hear my voice when I cry to you. Then you can hear the psalmist go through the various parts of the body. He says, set a watch before my mouth, O Lord, and guard the door of my lips. Let me not speak anything evil about anyone. In fact, let not my heart be inclined with any evil thing. Let not my mind, my body, my soul be occupied with anything that others are doing that is wrong or hurtful. Instead, turn my eyes to you, O Lord, for it is in you that I take refuge. It is in you that I have life. A prayer, right? A prayer that our whole lives might be for the goodness of God. Let the incense of our repentant prayer ascend before you, O God, and let your loving kindness descend upon us, that with hearts certain in you, we may sing your praises with the church on earth and the whole heavenly hosts, and glorify you forever and ever. Amen. This is a reading from John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God, and all things came into being through him. And without him, not one thing came into being that has come into being. In him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in darkness, and darkness does not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light, which illumines everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, or of the will of flesh, or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelled among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. That song, O Come, O Come, Emmanuel, is really one of the most ancient prayers in the life of the church. The names for that, O Come, Emmanuel, O Come, Dayspring, O Come, Lord, Giver of Life, there are 7 of them, traced back to the time of the exile of God's people to Babylon. And so, for example, if you went up to the Metropolitan Museum of Art and looked around there, you could see all of the various artifacts from that period, and you'll see that those people, that the experience of being in exile made them have some longing captured in what becomes those great O antiphons and O come, Emmanuel, O come, Dayspring, O come, Adonai. It's God's people calling out. They had been deported to Babylon. They're uprooted, their entire lives uprooted, and they're calling out for something better. Among other things, calling out that instead of a foreign government ruling them, that maybe they could rule their own. Instead of a foreign leader, maybe they could have one of their own. Instead of a foreign economy, maybe they could have their own economy. Instead of a foreign group of people neglecting the most vulnerable in their society, they could take care of their own. And those great O antiphons are sung by the church one night after another, leading up to today, as an intentional yearly prayer in a way for those very same things. We might not be deported, thank God, to another country, but so many in our midst are. So many come to this country and are uncertain what their status in it is going to be. There's so many among us, even here in the streets of New York, who don't know whether or not they're going to go to sleep this night out on a corner or in a shelter. There's so many who don't know how they're going to put the next bit of food on their table. So no, we don't live in the period of the Babylonian exile of God's people, but those very same dynamics that were true all those thousands of years ago are in our own time very much present. And they're heavy on our hearts. And I don't know about you, but when I think about those things, I wonder, well, where is God in all of that? One answer, particularly by a lot of people who really view God negatively, would say, well, God is entirely absent. That God is allowing all of these things to happen. Well, the church has never said that. In fact, God's people have never said that God is absent. In the reading that we heard in John's gospel, in fact, this is an argument that John is making. God was in the world trying to do good, and the world did not know it. The world just continued to operate as it operated. Christmas, this wonderful, joyous festival day, has at its core the message that God is not some distant, far off, lazy or vengeful God, but quite the opposite. The Christian tradition makes this claim that in the birth of Jesus, in the birth of a young in occupied Palestine, first century Palestine, and a young Palestinian boy, young Jewish boy in the town of Bethlehem, where because he had 2 parents that were unwed, their family didn't even put them up. In the birth of that one we call the Christ child is nothing other than God. Imagine that claim. One of the most, not even Jesus' own grandparents, aunts and uncles would open their door to him and his mother and father as he was being born. And the Christian tradition makes the claim that that is God. More than that, this little babe would sort of grow up and he would start to preach around the countryside things like, hey, maybe we should take care of the poor. Hey, maybe we should pay attention to the people who the society has placed on the margins. And the religious leaders of the day hunted him down. And because the Roman army, which had occupied this land, felt threatened by that too, they hunted Jesus down too. Everywhere he went, he was speaking about God's love and inspiring other people to share that kind of love with one another. And it ended him up in one of the most heinous ways, crucified by the Roman army. Christian tradition calls that God. So is God some far-off, distant, lazy, reckless, angry, vengeful God? No. For more than 2,000 years, the Christian tradition has argued that God comes in the flesh of that one born in Bethlehem. And not only that, but in you and me. In every single one of us who seeks not to continue the ways of the world's neglect, but is looking to change that. That is God. Not some far-off, distant, but right here among us now. As I said when we were gathering together with the psalmist, this idea is not new. The psalmist sat down and said, if this world of ours is going to be different, then it's going to begin with me. And that's what makes what we do gathering here this night so important. It's what makes every single time we pause in the cycle of this world that has a way with each and every single one of us to pause and say, if we want things to be different, they might begin with us. And then that takes some intentionality. Love doesn't come easily, right? Does it? Especially for those we struggle to love. We're called to that. Solving many of the world's problems does not come easily, but God not only calls us to that, but gives us the power to change it. And even says that power, very power of God, lies in you and in me. That's what John means when he says, in the beginning was the Word. It's written with a capital W. And it comes from the philosophical thinking of the Greeks of the day. It's not word as in, these are the words on a page, but an active word. A word with intentionality, and word that will keep its word. To say love and then to love. To say clothe the naked and they are clothed. To say feed those who are hungry and then feed them. To provide shelter. That's the active word that John argues is among us. So this night, and I hope every night in this year ahead, when you wonder how this world of ours might be different, know that God has put in you and me, just in the same way God put in that little baby born in Bethlehem all those years ago, the very Word of God. The power to love as God in this world. That's what it means to celebrate the miracle of the incarnation, the Word made flesh. That's what it means to celebrate Christmas. And the really good news is that that's not only a gift this night, it's a gift every day of our lives. But we begin this night by turning in a word of prayer. And I'll invite you, I'll say some words of prayer because, if things are going to change because we will intentionally reflect on those and then offer up at least some words and then some actions. So we'll pray for the church, the city of ours, those in a variety of needs, the world. We'll also remember our beloved dead. And I invite you to either pray silently in your heart, or if you want to offer something aloud as I'm praying, you're welcome. And those of you at home know that however you pray this night, God hears us. God. On this holy day, your Son was born in human flesh. Renew us, renew your church as the body of Christ, that we might show forth your love to all the world. As shepherds in the field heard good news of great joy, so give us courage to proclaim your love in our words and deeds, and by the example of our faithful lives. As angels sang of peace, strengthen all who work for peace and justice. This day we are particularly mindful and bring to our hearts the people of Ukraine. As the wise men came from afar to hear the good news, so guide all people to care for life throughout your whole creation. As Mary brought Christ to birth, so hold in your arms all children, especially those in pain or distress. As Christ came into this world as light shining in darkness, so bring comfort to all who suffer or sit in sadness, as well as those who care for them. As there was no room for Christ in the inn, protect all refugees, immigrants, and those without permanent shelter, and all who live in fear or want. As strangers found the family and saw the babe lying in a manger, so bless our homes, our families, and all whom we love. As angels and shepherds worshiped at Christ's manger, receive the worship and prayers we offer now in communion with Mary, Mother of God, Joseph, her spouse, our departed loved ones. Particularly this night, we remember saxophonist Ronnie Cooper, drummer Ben Dixon, pianist Bob James, band leader Cab Calloway. Hold them all in your glory and keep us steadfast in your faith until we sing forever at your throne of grace.
everybody. Merry Christmas. Thanks for being here. My name is James Boudreau. I am the programming director here at St. Peter's Church. Just want to say a few words. First of all, please help me thank these great musicians. On drums tonight, we have Neal Smith. Mark Lewandowski on bass. And Rick Germanson on piano. We're so glad you could be here in person with us. We've just reopened this space. If you've been here at St. Peter's in the last number of months, you'll know that we were having all of our services in the living room over there. So we're finally back in the sanctuary. We're delighted to be here. We're glad you're here. So if you're in the city, or if you live here, or if you're visiting, next week we're actually doing this again on New Year's Day. So we will have a wonderful trio led by bassist Matt Dwanzik will be here. So maybe we'll see you again then. You can also always catch the live stream on YouTube or Facebook or on our website. So I just wanted to say one thing about how we do this, and that is basically that every year the congregation gets together and says, we're going to fund Jazz Vespers for another year. We're going to fund concerts. We're going to fund all of the things that St. Peter's does. And we can't, frankly, do it without you. So if you're so moved, if you like what we do here, please consider making a gift. You could do that at stpeters.org. There's a basket in the back. If you just want to drop something in there, you could do that. Any amount is helpful for us to be able to continue doing this kind of programming for years to come. So thanks again. We have one more piece of music and then a blessing, and then I wish you a very merry rest of your Christmas. Thanks.
As you go forth from this place, go with the blessing of the one who brings light and life to all creation, and especially this night, go forth in peace. Thanks be to God.